I freeze, staring at the envelope in my trembling hands. My name is written on it in neat, black letters, and the seal of the county court stares back at me like a warning. I rip it open, heart hammering, and my stomach drops. Inside, hundreds of pages, every single one filled with my own words, my private moments, my conversations, recorded without me knowing. My wife's signature is on the last page, smiling in every photo they took, pretending to be the perfect partner. Every dinner she made, every laugh, every kiss, it had all been a setup. And now they want to take everything I've worked for, my life, my savings, my home, gone. I slammed the papers on the counter, my mind spinning. How could she? How could Angelica, the woman I trusted more than anyone, betray me like this? I can't just sit here. I have to fight. But I don't even know where to start. Then my phone buzzes. A message from her. "We need to talk tonight. You'll understand everything." I feel my blood freeze. I know this is a trap, and I can't let her win. My name is Jason Cole, 34, and I'm telling this because no one should ever be blindsided by the person they love the most, and I'm going to show you exactly how I fought back. I remember the first time I met Angelica. It was a late spring afternoon in Charleston, South Carolina. The air smelled of jasmine and the warm, salty hint of the harbor nearby. I was walking out of a small coffee shop, the kind with mismatched chairs and a faint smell of roasted beans lingering in the air. She bumped into me by accident, or so I thought, spilling her iced latte over the front of my shirt. "I am so sorry," she said, her voice trembling, cheeks flushed. Her hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders, catching the sunlight in golden streaks. I laughed, trying to brush it off, but inside I felt a strange jolt, like something in my chest recognized her. She smiled, embarrassed but genuine, and for some reason I couldn't stop staring. That day we walked together, sharing small talk and awkward laughter until the sky turned orange and the harbor lights flickered on. I remember thinking I could spend forever talking to her. And in that moment, I didn't know forever could also be a trap. Fast forward 4 years. Angelica and I had married, bought a small but beautiful home near downtown Charleston, and built a life that everyone else envied. Friends would tell me I was lucky, but they had no idea what was coming. Angelica had a way of making ordinary moments feel extraordinary. Sunday mornings were reserved for pancakes she flipped perfectly, humming softly in the kitchen while I read the newspaper. Weeknights meant home-cooked dinners, soft music in the background, and her leaning against me in the living room as we watched whatever series we were obsessing over at the time. She smiled more than anyone I had ever met, radiant, warm, always so attentive. I loved her deeply. I trusted her with everything, my savings, my career secrets, even the most embarrassing moments of my past. I told her everything because she was my confidant. Or at least, I thought she was. Looking back, I realized the first red flag was subtle, almost imperceptible. It was her curiosity about my work calls, her questions about friends I hadn't spoken to in years, the way she seemed to remember details I didn't even mention. I wrote it off as interest, love even. She cares too much sometimes, I thought. The second red flag came when she suddenly started recording little things with her phone. At first, I didn't notice. Sometimes she'd say she was capturing memories or just doing it for fun. I thought it was harmless. After all, who really checks someone else's phone in a relationship? Angelica's transformation over the months was uncanny. She became the perfect partner, cooking dinner every night, cleaning meticulously, leaving me notes by my laptop that said things like, "You're amazing, Jason." She smiled more than anyone, laughed more than anyone, and always seemed genuinely happy. Her friends even started to compliment her, saying things like, "Angelica, you've changed, you're glowing." I felt proud, thinking it was all me, my love, my support, my stability that had brought out the best in her. But it wasn't me. It was the plan she had built around me, piece by piece, like a spider weaving a web around its prey. I had no idea. None at all. The shock hit me one evening when I got home from work. The house smelled like rosemary chicken, and the soft lighting made everything feel cozy. Angelica was at the counter plating our meal with a smile. I reached for her, wrapping my arms around her waist. "You look beautiful," I said, pressing my cheek against hers. "Thanks, honey," she said, and for a moment everything felt normal. But then I noticed the envelope on the table. My name was on it. The words County Court printed on the top made my stomach turn. I opened it. The papers inside were filled with my own words, private conversations, video clips of me in our home, audio recordings of me talking to friends, everything. My heart pounded. My hands shook. I flipped through the pages trying to understand. Each page felt like a punch, each photo like a betrayal. Angelica walked into the room behind me, smiling that same radiant smile, holding a plate of food. "Jason, dinner's ready. Can we talk?" she said softly. I couldn't even look at her. Every word she had ever said, every moment we had shared was suddenly a lie. I felt dizzy, nauseous, and so angry I could barely breathe. I didn't know it yet, but Angelica had been recording me for months, building a case to take everything I had, my savings, my house, my career credibility, my reputation, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. I spent the next few days in a fog. I didn't sleep, didn't eat much, barely left the house. I replayed every memory in my head, searching for clues I could have seen but didn't. How could I have missed it? Every smile, every touch, every kind word, was it all fake? I reached out to a few close friends, but even they seemed hesitant to get involved. Nobody wants to take sides in a war like this. I realized I was alone, completely alone. The anger started small, like a flickering ember, but by the end of the week it had grown into a raging fire. I couldn't just sit back and let her take everything from me. I had to act. I had to plan. But before that, if you're still listening, please subscribe Betrayal Feud. It really helps to reach more viewers, and click the like button on the video. Getting back to the story. I went through our home, looking for evidence of what she had done. Her laptop, her phone, little hidden notebooks she kept around the house. Everything was meticulously organized. She had documented everything with precision, preparing for the day I would find out. And now that day had come. I felt a strange mixture of fear and determination. Fear because I had no idea how far she had gone, how prepared she was. Determination because I knew I couldn't be broken. I had built everything I had with my own hands, and I wasn't about to let someone else take it away, especially not someone I once loved. I started jotting notes in a small leather-bound notebook I kept hidden in my desk. I wrote down everything I remembered, conversations, behaviors, suspicions. I didn't know what I would do with it yet, but I knew it would be useful. Knowledge was power, and right now, I had none. I also realized that I couldn't trust anyone completely. Not friends, not colleagues. Angelica had proven that even someone you love and live with could betray you in the deepest way possible. I needed to be careful, methodical, and smart. One night, I sat in the dim light of my office, surrounded by the same court papers that had shattered my world. I flipped through them for the 100th time, trying to understand the full scope of her plan. Angelica hadn't just recorded me, she had built a meticulous timeline, cataloged my actions, even kept track of my bank transactions and daily routines. Everything I had ever considered private was now a weapon in her hands. I let out a long, slow breath and realized something crucial. I couldn't rush this. I couldn't act out of anger or despair. The moment I reacted impulsively, she would know. She had spent months building a fortress of control around me, and I needed a strategy to dismantle it piece by piece. I started by analyzing her patterns. Angelica was meticulous, predictable, and precise. Every evening she followed a routine. Dinner, soft music, conversation, small gestures designed to make me feel secure. Every weekend she arranged visits with friends or planned trips, always keeping me slightly off balance so I'd never notice the subtleties of her actions. I created a chart on a whiteboard in my office, marking everything. Her schedule, my own vulnerabilities, the places she might have placed cameras or recording devices, and the people she could have involved in her scheme. It was exhaustive, obsessive, but necessary. I had to think like her. If I wanted to outmaneuver her, I had to anticipate every move before she even made it. The court papers had also revealed a network, people who had inadvertently or unknowingly helped her, a server administrator who stored data she uploaded, a local technician who fixed a device she claimed was broken, even a few mutual friends who had shared information without realizing the consequences. I started compiling their names, knowing that understanding every link in the chain was crucial. Knowledge was one thing, but I also needed the right tools. I spent days researching privacy equipment, digital forensics, and surveillance countermeasures. I learned to detect hidden microphones, tiny cameras, and suspicious software running on computers and phones. I bought signal jammers, discrete tracking devices, and encryption tools for my own communications. Every step I took was to regain the control that had been stolen from me. I also realized I needed someone to help me. I couldn't rely on my friends. Even if they were loyal, this required skill and discretion I didn't have. That's when I reached out to Mark Reynolds, a former colleague who had once been a cybersecurity expert in a tech firm. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but when I explained the situation, carefully omitting names at first, he immediately understood. "You're dealing with someone organized and dangerous," Mark said over coffee in a quiet, almost deserted cafe. "If she's recorded you for months, she's probably got backups. You're going to need evidence to counteract hers, and you're going to need to protect yourself while you do it." Mark became my partner in this plan, not an accomplice, but a guide. He taught me how to detect digital trails, how to secure my devices, and even how to set traps for anyone attempting to monitor me. Together, we created a safe system of communication that Angelica could not intercept. I spent nights in my home, pretending to live normally while secretly scanning every corner for devices, cameras, or anything unusual. Every kitchen cabinet, bookshelf, and lamp was examined. I discovered tiny lenses, hidden SD cards, and even recording devices disguised as smoke detectors. It was like uncovering a hidden world that had been operating silently right under my nose. I also reviewed my financials obsessively. Angelica's plan clearly included claiming assets, access to bank accounts, and even some investments I had made. I started documenting every transaction I could, building a parallel record that would be essential if I ever had to defend myself legally. Understanding Angelica wasn't just about technology, it was about psychology. She had carefully manipulated me, feeding me affection while simultaneously monitoring me. She knew how I thought, what would make me relaxed, what would make me vulnerable. To fight her, I had to learn the same lessons: control my emotions, remain unreadable, and never show signs of panic. I practiced interactions, imagining conversations in my head. I rehearsed responses to her questions, comments, and even attempts to charm me into complacency. It was exhausting, but necessary. I realized that the battlefield wasn't just physical, it was emotional and mental. If I faltered, if I let anger or hurt control me, she would win. One of the most important steps was creating my own evidence. While Angelica had hundreds of pages documenting me, I began recording her actions too, but in ways that were discreet and legal. I set up cameras in common areas of the house where she couldn't claim privacy violations, noting behaviors and conversations that contradicted her court claims. Every interaction was now strategic. I wrote down details immediately after they happened, including times, locations, and what was said. I realized that a small slip, something she thought harmless, could turn the tide if I captured it. Mark helped me encrypt everything and store it safely outside the home. Cloud servers, external drives, and even a hidden safe in my office ensured that Angelica couldn't access my counter-evidence. After weeks of preparation, I began small tests. I would leave my phone in different rooms, check for signs of tampering, and notice if she was watching or observing. She was careful, but not perfect. I discovered moments where her focus shifted, little cracks in the mask she wore. Each small victory fueled me. I began to feel empowered again, like a part of me that had been dormant since the discovery of her betrayal was coming alive. I realized that the power she had over me was always an illusion that could be broken with patience, strategy, and intelligence. Beyond Mark, I quietly reached out to a legal consultant, Clara Simmons, a lawyer who specialized in family disputes and privacy violations. I didn't want to engage fully yet. Angelica shouldn't know I was preparing, but I needed advice. Clara taught me how to protect my assets, gather admissible evidence, and navigate the complex legal landscape. Between Mark and Clara, I felt like I finally had a team. They didn't judge me, they just helped me transform fear into strategy. For the first time since opening the court papers, I felt hope. Not naive hope, but calculated hope. As I analyzed every document and recording she had made, a theory began to emerge. Angelica didn't just want my money, she wanted control. She wanted to break me down emotionally, make me question myself, and ensure I couldn't fight back. The perfect smile, the nightly dinners, the laughter, they were all camouflage for her true goal. I realized something critical. Her plan, while meticulous, relied on me being predictable, on me reacting emotionally. If I could become unpredictable, if I could stay calm while building my own power, I could flip the game. I started meditating, running early in the mornings, and practicing visualization. Every day I envisioned confrontations, traps, and countermoves. I rehearsed every scenario. What if she tried to manipulate me with charm? What if she tried to intimidate me in court? What if she brought in people I trusted? The psychological preparation was as important as the physical and digital preparation. I had to steel my mind because I knew this battle would be long, exhausting, and mentally punishing. After 6 weeks of intense preparation, I reached a turning point. I had a full understanding of Angelica's system, the cameras, the recordings, the network of support, her manipulation tactics. I had built my own archive of evidence, secured my communications, and surrounded myself with allies. It was time to shift from defense to offense, not recklessly, not out of anger, but strategically. I knew the first move had to be subtle, something that wouldn't reveal my hand too soon, but would unsettle her. I plotted every day in my notebook, a timeline of interactions, digital countermeasures, and the first tests to gauge her reactions. I wasn't ready to confront her fully yet, but the foundation was set. For the first time since discovering her betrayal, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: control. I whispered to myself in the quiet of my office. She thinks she owns the game. She has no idea it's about to flip. Jason has now fully prepared. He understands Angelica's plan, has built countermeasures, has allies, and is ready to take calculated steps. Part 3, The Strike, will show the first real moves in his revenge, unexpected dangers, and the tension escalating toward a climactic showdown. The night I decided to make the first move, Charleston's streets were quiet, almost eerily so. I parked my car a few blocks from home, leaving the headlights off, and sat for a few minutes just breathing. The city was asleep, but I was wide awake, my mind racing through every contingency, every possible reaction Angelica could have to what I was about to do. I wasn't going in blindly. Every step I had taken over the past 6 weeks led to this moment. The cameras were mapped, the hidden devices disabled, my communications secured. The first move had to be careful, almost invisible, but it had to shake her foundation. I entered the house through the side door that I knew Angelica rarely checked. Everything looked normal at first glance: the soft hum of the refrigerator, the faint smell of rosemary from dinner she had prepared earlier. I kept my eyes on the small notebook in my hand, the one where I had mapped out her schedule and hiding spots for devices. The first target was simple: reclaim control of my own narrative. I carefully positioned a small camera in the living room, hidden in plain sight as a decorative object. This would record her movements tonight, giving me evidence if she tried any manipulation. It was small, unobtrusive, and most importantly, undetectable. Then I moved to the kitchen, scanning for hidden microphones. One, cleverly disguised as a smoke detector, was removed, bagged, and stored in my office. Each device I removed felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Angelica thought she had me completely observed, but I was turning the tables. I decided to test her subtly. I left my phone on the kitchen counter with a fake text message displayed from a colleague, suggesting a sudden financial problem. The goal wasn't to trap her yet, it was to watch how she reacted, to understand how she monitored me in real time. Within minutes, she entered the room, her face calm, but there was a flicker, just a subtle hesitation when she noticed the message. I made a note of it. That hesitation told me she was watching, and I was learning her patterns faster than she could anticipate. The next morning, I acted. I accidentally left a document on the dining table, one that appeared to be sensitive work information. Angelica noticed it immediately. "Jason, you shouldn't leave these lying around," she said, her tone casual but her eyes sharper than usual. I smiled faintly, pretending ignorance. "You're right, I'll be more careful." It was a small test, but her reaction gave me valuable insight. She was still observing, still calculating, and still overconfident in her control. She had not noticed my hidden countermeasures, and that overconfidence would be my advantage. Not everything went smoothly. One afternoon, while reviewing her financial moves and transactions, I discovered she had made an unexpected maneuver, transferring some assets to a friend's name without my knowledge. It wasn't illegal yet, but it was another layer of complication. I realized that Angelica was unpredictable in some ways, capable of improvisation. This was a reminder that the strike phase would require adaptability, not just pre-planned moves. I began documenting her new actions in real time, tracking her every deviation from the patterns I had studied. Mark and Clara were crucial during this phase. Mark helped me trace digital footprints she had left in her haste, identifying hidden servers and cloud backups where she stored recordings. Clara helped me draft responses to potential legal maneuvers, ensuring that I could counter any claim she tried to make. Together, we began building a silent case, proof that Angelica's actions were calculated, invasive, and manipulative. Each document, Each recording, each observation added to a growing arsenal that would protect me when it was time to escalate further. I also began using psychological tactics to unsettle her. I started leaving subtle evidence that I knew more than I let on, emails that were slightly misplaced, hints that she wasn't as clever as she thought, and small remarks during dinner that suggested I had insight into her actions. Her smiles never faltered, but I could see the cracks forming. A lingering hesitation here, a carefully measured tone there, little signs that her confidence was no longer absolute. Angelica was still dangerous, still cunning, but she was no longer untouchable. One evening, I nearly walked into disaster. I had been monitoring a hidden camera I discovered in our bedroom closet, reviewing footage for evidence. Angelica unexpectedly returned home early from a dinner with friends. I was in the hallway, laptop open, tracing digital files, completely exposed. I froze, holding my breath, heart hammering. She didn't enter the room, but I could see her reflection in the window, eyes narrowing, lips pressed together. I quickly minimized everything, feigning casual behavior as she passed by. That night, I realized something crucial. Angelica wasn't just clever, she was relentless. Every move I made needed to be carefully calculated. Any misstep could alert her, and then the advantage would be hers again. I decided to escalate, but subtly. I created a fake opportunity for her, a document suggesting that I might be liquidating certain assets. The goal was to provoke a reaction, to see if she would try to interfere or manipulate further. The result was immediate. She moved quickly, checking accounts and making discreet calls. I tracked everything. Her sense of control was challenged, and I could see her becoming anxious, an emotion she rarely displayed. This was the first tangible sign that my strike was working. An unexpected ally emerged. A neighbor, someone I had never spoken to much before, mentioned seeing Angelica with a stranger near the house in late evenings. She hadn't known anything about the recordings, but her observations added another layer of insight. I carefully documented her statements, adding them to the growing counter-evidence. The strike phase wasn't just about confrontation, it was about observation, patience, and forcing Angelica to reveal her hand without her realizing it. Despite the careful strategy, the strike phase was draining. I felt constant tension, nervous energy coursing through my body. Every interaction, every glance, every word required vigilance. Some nights I barely slept, haunted by memories of betrayal and anxiety over what she might be planning next. But even in the exhaustion, there was a sense of empowerment. I was no longer passive, I was active. I was taking steps to reclaim what had been stolen, and each small victory reinforced my resolve. The first tangible win came when I discovered a hidden flash drive, cleverly disguised in a kitchen appliance. It contained recordings she hadn't disclosed, evidence that contradicted her claims in court and proved her deliberate manipulation. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I copied the data, encrypted it, and stored it securely outside the house. This was the turning point. I had proof not just of her surveillance, but of her intent. The strike phase had begun to pay off. By the end of the first month of the strike, the dynamics had shifted. Angelica was no longer fully in control. She was reacting, adapting, and showing signs of stress. I had positioned myself strategically. Every move I made was calculated, every observation documented, and every interaction an opportunity to learn more. The next phase would be the culmination, when the evidence, strategy, and psychological preparation converged. The final confrontation loomed ahead, and I felt ready. Not reckless, not impulsive, but prepared for the ultimate revelation. I sat in the office late one night, reviewing the map of evidence and rehearsing my mental plan. I whispered to myself, as I had so many nights before, "She thought she could control me, but she has no idea the storm she's about to face." The strike phase was only the beginning, but the momentum had shifted. Angelica had underestimated me, and now every move I made brought me closer to the truth, and closer to reclaiming everything she tried to steal. The morning of the confrontation arrived like any other, yet I knew nothing about this day would be ordinary. I woke up early, the sunlight streaming weakly through the blinds, and reviewed my plan one last time. Every document, every recording, every hidden camera placement had been checked, secured, and backed up. This wasn't just about proving Angelica's manipulation anymore. It was about reclaiming my life. I dressed carefully, selecting a suit that projected calm, authority, and control. No nervous gestures, no faltering voice. Today, everything I had prepared over months would converge. Just as I was leaving my office to meet with Clara, my lawyer, Angelica called. Her tone was casual, almost playful. "Jason, can we talk? I think we need to clear the air before things get messy," she said. I didn't flinch. I responded with calm, controlled words. "Sure, we can talk. I'll see you tonight." The call ended, and I knew her intent. She wanted to provoke, to unsettle me, to test if I was still the same man she had tried to manipulate. But I wasn't. Every strike, every observation, every calculated step had fortified me. I wasn't going to react the way she wanted. The meeting was scheduled in a neutral place, a small conference room at the lawyer's office. Clara and Mark were both present, invisible yet essential, ready to provide support if needed. Angelica arrived, her expression calm, her hair perfect, her smile polished, but there was a subtle tension in her eyes I hadn't seen before. "Jason," she said, extending a hand, "I didn't expect you to take all this so seriously." I smiled faintly, ignoring the bait. "I always take serious matters seriously," I said. She glanced at Clara, who gave her a neutral look, then back at me. "I didn't think you'd find out about everything so fast," Angelica said, voice softer now, almost reflective. I leaned back slightly in my chair, letting her words hang in the air. Fast? Maybe. Careful? Definitely. I learned from someone who spent months documenting every word I said, every move I made. It taught me one thing: I can't be manipulated. Her calm demeanor faltered just slightly. I could see her calculating, realizing that I wasn't the same person she had deceived. I began revealing the evidence. Carefully, strategically, I displayed the recording she hadn't disclosed, the inconsistencies in her claims, and the hidden devices she had placed around our home. Clara took the lead in explaining the legal implications, but I could see Angelica's confidence slowly unraveling. "You think you have control over everything," I said, voice steady. "But this shows a pattern, a plan you didn't anticipate me noticing. You assumed I'd be blind. You assumed I would panic. But I'm still here. I'm still me." She opened her mouth, then closed it, realizing there was no defense strong enough to counter the mountain of proof before her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell. I didn't make threats. I let the evidence speak for itself. I let her see that her perfect mask had failed. I could see the tension building in her posture, the subtle tremor in her hands, the fleeting flicker of doubt in her eyes. For the first time in months, Angelica felt powerless. "Jason," she whispered, almost pleading, I didn't want it to be this way." "Then why?" I asked quietly. "Why betray me? Why try to take everything I've built?" She looked away, silence filling the room. Her carefully constructed persona had crumbled. The manipulations, the recordings, the smiles, they meant nothing now. She had lost control, and I had regained it. The following weeks were tense. Angelica tried to negotiate quietly, hoping to minimize exposure, but the evidence I had compiled was indisputable. Clara's expertise ensured that my financial and personal assets were protected. Every court hearing highlighted her deception, her calculated invasions, and her attempts to manipulate not just me, but the system itself. The judge ruled clearly. Angelica had no claim to the assets she had tried to claim. Every attempt to leverage the recordings and documents failed. My reputation, my finances, and my home were fully secured. The court acknowledged her intent to deceive, giving me not just protection, but also a sense of vindication. Standing outside the courthouse after the final ruling, I felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. The months of planning, observation, and careful execution had culminated in justice, not revenge in the violent sense, but a reclamation of everything that was mine. I realized something important. The strike phase had been more than just a tactical maneuver. It had been a journey of self-discovery. I had learned my own resilience, my own capacity for patience and strategic thinking, and most importantly, my ability to stand firm in the face of betrayal. Angelica's chapter was closed, but the emotional impact lingered. I knew trust was fragile, and betrayal leaves scars that don't heal immediately. Yet, I also knew I had reclaimed my narrative, my life, and my future. I returned home one evening, alone, and sat in the living room where so many memories had been made,
and manipulated. I took a deep breath, looking around the house that was once filled with deception, and felt a strange sense of peace. I had faced the storm, navigated the deception, and emerged intact. The house was quiet, no hidden devices, no cameras, no manipulations. Just me, and finally, control. I whispered to myself, almost as a vow, never again. I will not be blindsided. I will not be manipulated. I will always fight for what is mine. The betrayal had ignited a fire, but the truth had extinguished the power she thought she had. And for the first time in months, I felt free.